Okay, welcome to episode 9 of Inside the Teacher Studio. This evening's episode is a family affair. We have a returning guest, John Howard, and he has brought along his family member, Dr. Tracy L. Johnson. Nephew, right?
My nephew.
Yeah.
That's right. So, before we get started, number one, Inside the Teacher Studio is really an opportunity for us to celebrate the artistry and creativity of educators. And when I say artistry, it's not literally artists, but we just happen to have an artist in residence right now. So where and when it speaks to your art, know that yes, it's about what you do in your day job, but it's also about in our field of education, there are some things that we have to operate under that we're not necessarily in alignment with. And I'm the kind of person that's ask for forgiveness rather than permission. So when I talk about creativity, I'm thinking about what are the different ways in which I can create chaos in my own little way so that others don't have to go through what I've had to go through in education. So as we get started, Dr. Tracy, would you please introduce yourself to the audience?
Well, my name is Dr. Tracy Johnson. I'm a art teacher and also a social scientist. I study cultural behaviors dealing with academics, as well as project-based learning.
Great. Thank you so much. Are there other things that you'd like to share with the audience about who you are and your identity?
Throughout my research, I identify as an African personality, pulling from from Blyton all the way back to Edwin Blyton. And there's been other scholars who have taken that on. And I just feel like the idea of having an African personality needs to be set to remind me not to project who I am onto the multicultural population that we have here in this country, which is great, but to respect the different cultures and respect my own self first, and then go into interactions that way. So I actually went through my doctorate program and very quickly adopted from African identity to African personality. Every paper, everything that I published was done that way.
That's great. I would love to follow up on the difference between African identity and personality later on.
A growth. Yeah, it was a growth thing. It was a realization. Go ahead.
No, I'd love to ask you a little bit more about that. But before we move on, I wanted John Howard to introduce himself for those who might not have caught him the first time around.
Well, first off, I'd like to back up. Dr. Johnson has missed some good information. He's from North Kakalaki. I want him to talk about where he's from. I want him to talk about his academic journey. I mean, you talk to him now, you know, he lives in Chicago, so he think he all this. I know where he's from.
Oh, yeah.
See, this is why I brought Uncle around. I brought Uncle around because I wanted to make sure that
I'm grounded. Yeah.
We tagged
but you know, I grew up in the country and loved it. Absolutely loved it. One of my sisters, we talk, and she's like, Tracy, you got to like run around literally from the time you could walk. Like, you had no restrictions. I would go through the woods. I had a German Shepherd. My dad raised dogs. I would try to teach my German Shepherd how to hunt. We had family gardens. We had smokehouses and everything. I learned a lot. I didn't realize how much I was learning growing up just in that wonderful environment. And it's who I am. I get to pretend to live in urban areas, but
yeah, because I tell you, the pleasure and the honor of witnessing, this young man, where we're from, the way our village brought us up. We grew up in the South in the 60s, 70s, 80s, you know.
Yeah.
So to see it's where his platform is now and to understand the social scientific foundation that he has built upon is pretty phenomenal, because if you don't leave our area, you get indoctrinated. And that's why I was so proud to see my nieces and nephews, you know, get out, go other places, explore other demographics, explore other, you know, institutions of learning, and now they're all out, you know, doing fantastic things in the world. So that's the only reason why I want to co-host today, so I can talk about them.
I love that. And we are going to get to, you know, what those formative years in a moment with our questions. However, again,
Okay,
John,
back to me. So
would you mind reminding the audience of who you are?
So I am a transformation professional. We do corporate turnarounds. The name of my company is JH2 Performance Group, LLC. I'm also the president of manufacturing and industrials at the Black Rose Group, which is a mergers acquisition advisor organization. So we do M&A, we do corporate turnaround, we do Lean Six Sigma training. You know, I'm a practitioner. I do executive coaching for a couple of great organizations like Control M Solutions. Just an enabler. You know, I try to help people get to where they need to be in organizations, particularly in times, you know, like right now, having agility, understanding your industry, being the best at what you do. And then that cascades back to the things I like to do in terms of being a community servant. And that's like junior achievement, you know, anything STEM related, supporting, you know, science, fairs, math, you know, because everything's math. Y is a function of X. I tell kids all the time, you know, you might say you hate math in the classroom, but you live math everything you do. So, you know, that's why I'm excited to be a part of this forum, Miss Black, and very proud of, you know, all the professionals that you bring here to have them share their insights. So I'm blessed and proud to be back once again and again to endorse my phenomenal nephew.
We are so happy to have you back. And again, this is one of my STEM partners in crime. And these days they put an A in there, the STEAM. So where you see into that, Dr. Tracy, please do
I fit in.
comment. Yeah. You absolutely are part of this crew. So I always start my interviews with this, Dr. Tracy. When did you fall in love with education?
Whoa. You know what? In undergrad, I ran from education. I have professors that, you know, everybody knows before you do, right? So I had one professor, he's like a mentor, Dr. Beard. He had me covering some of his classes. He'd be like, Johnson, come here, like, I got to go and do something and cover this class. While you at it, here's some material, like, go over that. All right. My first loan stint, I covered a 2-week period. We had a professor, she walked in and she was going to teach us about this artist out of Philadelphia. And I can't remember the particular artist's name. And she wanted to tell us that the artist did not like and profess about not wanting to paint people of color, particularly Black people. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, look, hey, I got an issue with that. I pay to go here. Another uncle, my Uncle Jesse, graduated from here. I'm not doing this. This is a historical Black school. This isn't happening. And she's like, well, if you think you can do better, here, you do it. You teach the class for the next 2 weeks, I'm gone. Her and another student who's an older guy, they walk out. And I'm sitting there like, everybody turns and look at me. What are we going to do? So I taught the Harlem Renaissance for 2 weeks.
Nice.
And we did, you know, I did some introductions around that. I got myself together, came back for the next, you know, how college classes work, you know, next couple of days and presented. We got projects started and going, and yeah, that was pretty much it. After that, the other professors in the department were like, oh, I hear you teach. Cover my class. I'm gonna, you know. So I was covering about three professors' classes last couple of years. I was in undergrad. Still didn't
Wow.
want to teach. Didn't want to teach them. Like, nope, not doing it. I worked for a private mental health company and worked for also a state mental health company, well, agency. So I had a lot of free time because really wild hours. And I was like, I need something to do with my time after I graduated. Someone suggests like, hey, just sub teacher, you know, do something like that. I go to community college, my hometown, take the class to get licensed to be a sub teacher and all that. And they end up hiring me at the community college. And so I end up teaching there. They're like, we need an English teacher, we need a math teacher. And if you want to teach art, you got to teach these other two subjects. I'm like, oh, okay. So I covered 2 campuses in my home county. And actually like fell in love teaching and John's gonna love this, but teaching math. It was the math class that got me.
I love it.
I had, yeah, you never heard the story. I got to like fractions, decimals, and percentages, and I was working with adults who were trying to attain their high school diplomas.
Mhm.
And some of these people were parents of, you know, people I went to school with or were in classes that I knew, younger or older, what have you. And just the idea of me prepping like the days before, how could I communicate to them these concepts that they would get it? What could I get them to relate to? I used the dashboard of a car, the gas tank, like all different kinds of things. And like, hey, like when you're doing this, you're actually dealing with fractions. You're doing this, you're actually dealing with decimals. And these things correlate and they relate in these ways. And I was hooked. Yeah, I was hooked. It was so fresh. Like I got to deal with new problems almost daily. I didn't immediately go into teaching. I went a little bit higher up with the public agency, and for about a year or two, and then went to Greensboro for a little while. Started taking graduate courses. Ended up going to Charlotte. Ended up owning a coffee company that had failed, and then the restaurant. I was successful with those things, and I don't care how much money you make. There's just something that's empty inside of you that money is not going to solve. I really love teaching. I I was making really good money at a young age, and took my first teaching job at like 30,000, and didn't look back.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that because I too came to education kicking and screaming. I was a
Mhm.
history major in college, and so they thought in my undergrad, and everyone's like, what are you going to do, teach? And again, history wasn't my choice either. It was my way of getting out of school before my sister, who's 10 years younger than I am, entered UCLA at the same time. I was like, oh, what do I have on my transcript? Oh, history.
Yeah.
I'm a history major. So, you know, like you said, there's people that see things in you before you see it in yourself. And I had a very good friend who had been at me for becoming an educator, and I love that you fell in love with it. Teaching math, that's, you know, I'm loving all of that.
Yeah, my all of my art people are going like, what? Yeah, they see this, they're going to like hit the floor. But yeah, it was enough.
Oh, I
But
forgot to ask. Oh, go
everybody
ahead.
in my family is like in the sciences, like engineers and meteorology, and educators. Um, my aunt who got me to do my doctorate, my other uncle's wife, like, I'm like, Uncle Jess, the best thing you did was like, marry Aunt Margaret. You're like, look, you're gonna do your doctorate, or I'm gonna put you down right here on your family property. Like, so like that.
Good, Jess.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. So this next question, I know that when John came on, he was talking about how his parents were his first teachers. So I'm wondering if you could tell me a little bit about your experiences as a young learner.
Oh wow. Um, I just absorbed everything. Not even I thought it was normal. Um, I would help like fix like machines, like we have like plows, or we'll have a lawnmower, or the old truck. And also, I come from a family where we like to drag race a little bit. So I actually have another uncle, Uncle Harry. He loves to drag race. My dad loved drag racing. Like you know, my uncle was a little bit more legal with it. My dad and his brothers, they were a little bit more, let's go out late at night.
Right.
And run. So just understanding how things work at a young age. Growing up reading almanacs, like using tools and like knowing the purpose, when to respond to things. You talk about a cultural shock. When I was in school, like in public school, and the whole idea of Valentine's Day was like extremely foreign to me. Like I went home like thinking like, what are my parents doing to me? Like, you got me into this weird place, and they're talking about flowers during February when you're killing hogs. You're doing other things. Your mindset is set to what's going on outside, not this pretend
Right.
idea of what February should be. Is what February is, what it actually is. And so that whole thing, the culture shock of what we talk about with the white culture academics and how they perceive the world, for me, it didn't make sense at a very young age. So my lessons came from my family, interacting with them, doing activities. All of that came through.
I forgot to ask, which sibling of yours, John, is his parent? Give him a shout.
My sister Edna, we just celebrated her life, unfortunately, here recently. But man, beautiful soul, touched the world. She was also in education. She drove the mobile library in the county they lived in. Everybody knew her. All the kids loved her. And just her spirit is synonymous with education and kindness, humility, and love of community. So she is very missed.
Yeah, and tough love too. You want to know like an academic lesson? I shared it during the ceremony. She had told me one summer, like, Tracy, you're not going to say a word you can't spell. That summer, and she was just, she knew everything. Between her and my dad, I was like, me and my sisters had like no choice. And
don't forget about Granny Howard.
And same with same with Granny Howard. Like, there is no, you have no other options. And it's not even an argument. It was just a way of life. And anything else would be like, what are you doing? Like, what, and just go away. Like, I'm over here. So it's just how we raised.
Yep, totally immersed.
Yep.
I love that. You spoke of how the world was your classroom, and that there was a disconnect between your natural desire to learn things and what you were experiencing in the actual school system. Can you talk about a little bit about your favorite teacher and why they're your favorite teacher?
My favorite teacher? Wow. That's a little bit of a rough one. I mean, it's my family was my favorite teacher.
Yeah.
The system was so, the system is real. I was someone who was being raised with confidence, humble, right? But if you got something to say, don't dare hesitate to say it. So I mean, I had some good teachers. I had a coach in in high school that actually gave me Malcolm S. book that was the one that was edited by John Henry Clark. I thought that was probably like really a, you know, outside of school experience. It was like, on the side, like, hey Tracy, you seem like you would like this, and here, take it. And I said, okay. But that's how I got introduced to John Henry Clark. Of course, I knew Malcolm S, but I would read the people involved in writing the books, the references and things like that. I want to know the context of what I'm dealing with, and I got introduced to a lot of great elders and ancestors. Now, there was a lot going on, like when we were all growing up, in our academic culture and research, and so look, there's very little in public education from my personal experience that I truly brought into who I am now. I had to quite literally teach myself going through the public school system. You run into teachers who don't believe in you. You run into some who do. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's far more who don't and would rather see you fail than to be successful. So it was determination. Then that's my family.
Right.
I walk on their foundation. So
Got it.
Yeah.
So you talked about what brought you to the profession. It wasn't really something that you were thinking about, but because you spoke up, because you grew up with that, right? You see something to say, you got to say it, right? That's your responsibility. And then, you spoke of your experiences in education, and that really didn't speak to you, and you didn't have those models. We now work in that system that is still doing the things that it was set out to do, and our kids are suffering because of it. We now have we have somebody who's trying to upend our whole way of being here in this country and threatening to close, the Department of Education, and how that impacts us. We still haven't figured it out, right? So we have to deal with a lot of things that don't really sit well with our spirit. What keeps you here in this profession?
Wanting to see someone like me that I really didn't get the opportunity to see that often. I had a couple of Black male teachers growing up, a couple of Black female teachers growing up, mostly at the middle school level, which had been the desegregated high school in my town. Actually, my mom was part of the last graduating class from there. And so a lot of the personnel that she had gone through school with, I got to experience, and that was really a wake-up call. If I had to point to like favorite teachers, it's funny when you ask that, to be so traumatized. I'm like, I don't relate them to my public education system, because they were still incubated into the institution of family, of home, those cultural values. The librarian who was there, Miss Peace, she had been my mom librarian, and when my class would go on trips that I thought were idiotic, I was like, I'm not going there. So like, I'll stay in the library, and I'll help out there, and I'll do stuff there. So yeah, I mean,
you didn't want to go to Tweetsie Railroad?
Man, no. We went there. Our parents took us there, but no, it was, my dad worked on the railroad, but like it, I didn't want to go to like, the county community college. Well, I ended up working not at that site, the one in Sanford just there, but I ended up working on one in Solid City, the one in Pittsburgh. But it's just kind of ironic. Like I didn't want that to be my academic future. I was looking at other things, and I didn't want to waste time in something I knew I wasn't going to entertain or be a possibility for me. And so, don't take me to the community college with a large class. Take me to the university, the college campuses, and yeah. So, yeah.
I look, I can tell that you are from the same family. You have the same wiring. You're like, I'm not doing that. So
Yeah, but what keeps me there, in this field, um, you know, basically I'm an agent behind enemy lines. The public education system is not set for us. If you look at the numbers segregation, I've had personal like reports of people who were like, Tracy, like colleagues who were older getting ready to retire. There was no achievement gap when segregated schools were in play. We did more with less. We do more with less. It's how we operate. And so the idea of the current public education system, the integrated public education system, you have most of our children, our population, who are not, the wrong statement would be to say that they are failing. They're being failed. That
exactly.
the majority of our staff across this country are not able to respond to everyone in front of them. And that is our number one job. When I walk into my class, my main responsibility is be able to know the young people in front of me, know them generally through their culture, their logic, and then grow individual relationships with them. But that happens over time. And in setting up those teacher-student relationships is my core responsibility, to be able to connect with every student and get them to their best, not my best, but their best. I don't see that a lot. I
Right.
see it sometimes. When I do, I celebrate it. But when you look at the numbers, when you look at our capability as a people, it's we're we're being destroyed, and we've been destroyed by with our most valuable resource, which is our children.
You're right.
And too many, just too many of these propaganda of, well, it's you're not capable, your population really hasn't done this or that. You can only tell that to people who don't know who they are, and that's our fault. We have to own that.
Right.
We have to do a much better job, not wanting someone else to do something that we have to do, and that starts in the homes and the communities of our population, and that's truly has to be regenerated, to begin to combat this, and take ownership of that. It's not a blame game. It's like, let's stand up and hold ourselves accountable to ourselves, not to anyone else, and then live out our high capabilities and whatnot. So yeah, that's
Right.
what that's what keeps me going. And that's in academics, I found the cause that I would never get tired. Um, yeah, I get paid to go and do something I love, and
Right.
to be politically, socially active with my students, all my students. I give them my best, and if I can rub off on someone who may see that or may want to emulate that, that's all the better.
I love that. You talked about, well, when I looked at your CV, I was really, really interested in hearing a little bit more about how you do bridge social justice issues with art. Would you be willing to share anything about your current role that where you demonstrated artistry in your craft to that end?
So I've done a couple of fellowships with the Pulitzer Center in 2020, 2 years, yeah. And it was not my first time doing that. I've done it before. Um, as far as bringing um, social issues into art, the biggest thing, and I think, John, even bigger than math, art is so important because we all think in images. We think of a word, we think of concepts and different things. We have to have an image there to define that. In art, I get the opportunity to question those images, Like what looks right, what is right, what is right. And so when in doing that, I get my students to explore themselves, explore their families. I first started even before I did the work with Pulitzer. I started with students. They would do a family history. I would teach them how to do portraits, the artistic everything, and now you're going to investigate a grandparent or greater in that generation. It could be uncles, cousins, whatever. I learned so much from my students doing that, and doing it. I started doing it in North Carolina, and just amazing lives that just goes untapped. I had everyone in my classroom. Their families they've been there, they've done it locally, nationally, internationally. They were doing amazing things. So it just, it becomes the thing that you have to do. You want to connect with your students so that they can gain confidence in who they are and gain confidence in the things that they're going to be charged and faced with doing as they go into adulthood. I want to be a small part in giving them that.
I swear I could talk to you all night about all of this stuff. I know that you said earlier that it doesn't matter how much money you make, that you want that's not going to necessarily bring you fulfillment. One of the things that I like to highlight and amplify on this podcast is joy. So what brings you joy?
What brings me joy?
Yes.
When I have students, I treat my students like my children, but when I have students who come back and they're like, like Dr. Johnson, like, I'm doing this technique that you taught us and it worked. And I had a student, this was years ago, I was in North Carolina still, and I had her for 1 year, and she graduated. She went to Georgia Tech, and she was in the architectural program there. First year, she's in a huge class, and they were teaching. The professor was introducing the golden proportion, and the golden rectangle stuff. And so he asked in the class, "Who knows about this? And do you know how to operate it?" So something like that. She said she rose her hand because she thought other people were going to raise her hand, and she realized she was the only one raising her hand. And had a great experience. Told the professor everything that she had learned, and she came back like that spring break, and she came to visit, and she's like, "You're not going to believe this. I felt so good."
Yeah.
And when I get stories like that, where they're like, it don't even have to be that grand, just little something, little, like when they come back and I'm like, it's working, right? It's working. That's, yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
talk about those other two. I know another architectural engineering student somewhere, and another little princess running around your house. Now I know those two bring you joy too. Look at that face.
Oh yeah. So my son Jesse, he's at HBCU studying architectural engineering first year, and just, whew, man, you think me and John are smart? Wait till you see this guy. Yeah, and then there's Jonathan, uh, uh, and then there's John's other nephew, and then there's Maya, my daughter. Just feed them and keep them challenged, keep them busy, and just going. And they will, as adults, they will run you out, but they'll force you to eat right. They'll force you to stay in shape. All that good stuff. So yeah.
But the other thing,
yeah,
when the family was around, I'm looking at Jesse, I'm looking at Maya, Ryan, Pascal, Harper, and we were raised a lot more disciplined. And I don't know that, trust me, they're very disciplined. They are very kind. They respect authority, and they're very respectful. But they are also empowered to think. They're also empowered to communicate effectively. They're also empowered to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're talking with these young people, back in the day, you walk in a room, it's yes, ma'am, no, sir, and don't say nothing until somebody speaks to you.
Mhm.
Right.
Now they come in, what you doing? What's that?
Mhm.
Explain that to me. What
They'll take over the conversation.
they will take over the conversation. And I love
Yeah.
it because in today's particular demographic, for them to protect themselves, they got to arm themselves intellectually, and have this broad awareness
Mhm.
so they can identify what's unsafe. They can identify what's safe. They can identify and be able to, synthesize a lot of information and come to some quick conclusions, and then do what they need to do to move forward. And we expect them all to be successful. Yeah. So yeah, that's very powerful to see how these kids are. And Tracy and I had a conversation with our nephews, Jonathan and Jesse, and I'm sitting there like, I wasn't talking like this when I was their age. I'm out here trying to go play basketball or run into, something I handle business. And these cats are intellectually sound.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
But you know what? I think
And well read.
well read and well identified.
Mhm.
They know who they are. Um, I think a little bit delayed, because you think you had to adjust going into dealing with different cultures. I wanted to make sure that my children didn't have that delay. That
That's
this
right.
generation, that they didn't have a gap. Like don't stop, keep going.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
I
right.
love that because both of your examples of what brings you joy are what I call getting your report card as either a teacher or as a parent, right?
Mhm.
You're getting feedback in terms of your impact when you get that kind of mirror or window held up for you to
Mhm.
see those U's that you're looking for as a teacher,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So I love that. One of the things that we kind of talked about prior to coming on here that another reason that I am in love with this project is that sometimes teachers and just adults in general don't know what their superpower is. And you already told me you already know what your superpower is. So can you share that with our audience, please?
My superpower is that I work to instill confidence in my students. Um, like, look, you're gonna have to prepare yourself to do this and more without me. Um, I don't set myself up as their standard.
Mm,
I back myself up. Um, I construct their time with me to leave stronger and more capable. And it's just I'm a small part in their schedule. I'm a small part in their secondary experience and their whole K-12 experience. But that
mhm.
time with me, I honor for that very purpose. Yeah, I'm going to make you stronger when you leave out.
I
But
love
no,
that. Oh,
they are watching you.
Oh, all the time.
right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's amazing that you already know what your purpose in your role is as an educator, and how you bring just the sum total of all of your experiences from your family to your mentors. I love that that feeds who you are as an educator in building that confidence in our young people, because that's one of the things that I think in my current role, I see a lot of students that are so afraid to engage because they don't have that confidence. And, that's something that even at fifth grade, 10 years old, they're already starting to kind of go into their shell, and they're very worried about, what does everybody think of them and how do they look to their peers? And so trying to be able to come in after they've had such a long experience already at 10 of you know, being told, follow me and do what I say, as opposed to, how would you make sense of this? Right. Because a lot of the sense of belonging and confidence comes from, again, amplifying the voices of our young people and trying to figure out, how do I facilitate this conversation so that they can make sense for themselves and feel a sense of agency? So thank you for all of it that you do in your role. As we start to close up our session today, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to come back again, Dr. Tracy, because there's so many things I would love to follow up with you about, especially when it comes to identity work and how that impacts how we show up in this world and how we move through this world. I'm hoping that you would we will join.
I would love to come back. Yeah.
In a future conversation. At the end of all of my episodes, this podcast's name was based on a show that I used to watch on Bravo called Inside the Actor Studio.
Yeah.
And at the end, the host always asked these same 10 questions. And if you will humor me, I would love to ask those questions of you now.
Okay.
And John, I'm going to let you jump in too if you want to change any of your answers, because I don't think you were inhibited last time, but you know, just in case. And again, if you'd like to pass, please feel free to pass, Dr. Tracy. Okay.
That's fine.
What is your favorite word?
My favorite word? Try.
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 John, do you have an update, John?
I thought the question was, what's your favorite cuss word?
Well, that's tough. He's jumping ahead. This is what happens when you invite former guests on. They like to steal your thunder.
I'm contaminating the process. Keep it moving.
Okay, what's your least favorite word, Dr. Tracy?
No.
No. What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Effort.
What turns you off?
Laziness. Boredom.
What's your favorite curse word? Here's John's question.
Wow.
And say it with your full chest. No.
Full chest. Wow. My favorite. Wow. Had to be like, oh fuck. Yeah.
Okay. What sound? Yours is the same. I think that's everyone's. That's a lot of people's favorite.
MF.
MF is the other one, the alternative, right? What sound or noise do you love?
Good conversations.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Bad conversations. I hate a bad. I mean, I don't want to be around it.
I was like, can I get out of here right now?
Yeah,
I hear you. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Oh well, yeah. Me and John were talking about doing consulting. I teach in a project as a project facilitator. It's my style, my pedagogy. So I like to branch out in that.
I love that.
And having conversations, I think there's a lot of similarities there.
He can cook too, and his coffee shop was off the hook.
Oh,
I know how to cook. I've done that before. I want to do something new.
You want to do something new? Okay. Yeah. What profession would you not like to do?
Not like to do? I would not want to be I wouldn't want to have to type for someone else. Like I love to type, I love to write, but to do work for someone else, like write your own stuff. I wouldn't.
Right.
Want to, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Do your own thing. Do your own thing. And my last question is, if an afterlife exists, what would you like to hear your maker say when you arrive?
Well done.
Well done. So before we go, I wanted to, number one, for those of you who are not already subscribing, please like, subscribe, share, comment. And Dr. Tracy, where can folks get a hold of you if they would like to follow up with questions or comments or would like to collaborate with you?
My email is Tracy, TRACY.L, as in Lamont, .Johnson, JOHNSON 93@gmail.com.
Great. Are there any other projects that you'd like to highlight before we go?
Wow. So I have some presentations coming up in March. I'll be in Philadelphia for the Northeastern Modern Language Convention. I'll be at a Black Studies Convention in Cincinnati, and I'll be presenting two possible articles to get published. And then I'm at the beginnings of working on a academic textbook, so, and dealing with African personality, right? Like how to teach that.
Got it. You know what? I never did come back to talk about the difference between that. So you're going to have to come back and share more on a future episode. So the details of those presentations, if folks, are they open to the public, or is this something that you might be sharing on socials?
Yeah, they're post-secondary institutions, so you would have to pay to go.
Got it.
But I think that all are welcome. But yeah.
Okay. Do you have a place where you share any of those talks or recordings?
I mean, for right now, I'll put things on my LinkedIn report.
Okay.
But as things get published, then then they're open. So yeah, my work with Pulitzer, I have two articles with them, not articles, but two unit plans with them. And one of those two was also published under the 1619 project. But all of those are on my LinkedIn project.
John, did you see that when you were looking in the book? When you were reading that book? Because when John was visiting, he looked at that book on my shelf, and I was like, I'm like, did you see that? I love it. Okay, so first of all, thank you so much, Dr. Tracy, for spending some time with us today and sharing your artistry with us. I hope you'll come back. John, thank you again for coming on and co-hosting and sharing your family with us. Until next time, Monica Black, and I hope to see you soon on a future episode of Inside the Teacher Studio.